Hello, friends, and welcome back to Tutti Talks, the podcast where music and conversation come together. I'm your host, Aveline Schienke, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Braedyn MacKeller and Bridget Parlmer. We're also joined by our special guest, Andrew Gagiu.
Yes, thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you for being here. Andrew is a DMA candidate cellist and educator with a multifaceted career. He has performed with orchestras across the country and runs his own private studio. Today, we'll talk about his journey as a musician, how he balances performing and teaching, and what it takes to make a life in music. We're excited to dive in, so let's get started. Andrew, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
All right, so just to start off, could you just walk us through your history with music, when you started learning the cello, what made you want to start playing, what schools you got your degrees from, and what you're doing now career-wise?
Woo. All right, where's the book? Okay. Music. So I started music pretty much because of my dad. He went to Juilliard for piano. And I would say he brought that to his kids, me and my sister, and we started piano probably around the ages of 4 and 5. We both did choirs because he's a choral conductor. My sister did the Seattle Girls Choir. I did the Northwest Boy Choir. And then cello didn't start until 4th grade. And so I was 9. And cello actually really started because my dad was really seeing that the piano part that my sister and I were going through, could tell it was getting a little bit hard with him as a pianist and wanting to also be like our secondary teacher. It was getting hard to maintain that love and those practice habits and everything. So he was like, maybe that they're going to want to start doing violin and cello. So he really pushed for that. And so I was doing cello age 9 through middle school, through high school. And I wasn't doing any like quartets or orchestras or anything like that really outside, except for some summers here and there, like no youth orchestras or anything like that. And then after high school, I was thinking, I'm just going to do cello as like my side, as like my minor, but I'm a math guy. I'm going into engineering. I'm going to the school to do engineering. That's the way it's going to be. I actually applied to a few different schools in Washington and one in Michigan. And the one in Michigan, Andrews University, I came to do like a visit and I did like a live audition for them because we just wanted to see, what kind of people were there? What would they say with my audition? Could I get into the school as a minor? And they came out and said, yeah, how about you double major? And I said, well, that's a lot of work. And they're like, but what if we give you tuition? And I was like, well, that could. So that's kind of how that started. So I started double majoring at Andrews University, electrical engineering and music at the time. Again, music was like they're going to pay for it, but I'm going to practice a couple hours a day. It'll be like what it is. And I really had a good time my first year. And then it was that first summer when I went to Rocky Ridge. It's a festival. I was kind of recruited. Anyway, that's kind of where it was like, wait, I could practice more than 2 hours. Wait, I really like this. And also I will say engineering at that time was starting to be, I like math, but wait, this math is a little bit crazy. And the engineering classes are like, this is a little bit different. This is not exactly what I thought. And after that summer was like, no, I'm going to pursue performance. And I think that second year I was doing the engineering stuff too, but like my heart was like half in and half out of it. But I knew I wanted to pursue music more full-time in that second year. And I ended up changing my teacher that was at Andrews University to the teacher that was at Western Michigan University, Bruce Uchimura. And so I was driving from Andrews to Western, and about an hour away from Berrien Springs to Kalamazoo. And that's where it was like, oh, wait, I could really take this cello thing on like full time. And it was me who was like, I think the music school experience for me at the time will be better at Western. And that's when I asked Uch if he would accept me if I transferred, and he did. And so I did Western Michigan University for 3 years after that, after I transferred in. And then I went to the Hart School to do my master's in cello performance with Suzuki pedagogy emphasis. And I was there for 2 years. And then after that, I went to, and technically still a student at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I've done my coursework, and I'm just working on my final paper right now.
Great. And you also have a studio, right?
Yes. So I have a studio. Again, I moved here about July with no one really, no like prospects or anything like that. We moved because my wife got a job at Forest Hills Northern. So now I'm up to I was just doing the calculations yesterday just for sending out invoices and everything, but I have 21 students at this moment, and that's between teaching at Rockford High, North Rockford Middle, East Rockford Middle, Jennison Junior High, Jennison High School, and my private students. I think I travel to one student now. Yes, I have a private studio now.
Great. Yeah. It's a nice variety.
Yes, it's a variety I never thought I would have, but it's really cool to be able to go into the public schools and pull out students who otherwise wouldn't have the ability or time or whatever you want to say to have after school music lessons. So it's really cool to see the growth and the struggles. It really is cool to see the struggles with all of that. But teaching at my home, that's also great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that Rockford does that. I haven't seen that at other schools. Does Jennison do that as well?
Jennison does that. Jennison, as far as I know, has had a history of doing that.
Yeah.
Especially since Dan Scott's been there, which has been quite a while, I believe. I don't want to say they've done it since he got there, but I know that they've been doing it for a while there.
Yeah, it's so useful. It brings in so many more students when they're able to either do it during orchestra and teachers allow that, or after school. It eliminates so much of the trouble for parents. And I think it's a great opportunity for students. I know a lot of people wouldn't have done lessons unless they had that opportunity.
A lot of my students that I teach in the schools or even outside of the schools coming to me with orchestra music of like, how do I practice this? And I could see like their practice habits are, they just need a few sentences here. And then it's like, oh, no, then but they needed that. And they're not getting that out of school. So a lot of when I was teaching earlier on in the year, there was a lot of working on orchestra music, but then we can segue into more solo work that as I continuously remind them or encourage them that the solo work also helps their orchestra playing. Because you have a lot of students who just want to play orchestra. They haven't even had lessons and they love playing orchestra with their friends. These are good pieces and really fun pieces and pieces I wish I had when I was in the schools.
So what have been your experiences interviewing for professor positions?
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm still in this process and I'm still figuring this out. So this is something I started looking at in the last couple of years is, when I started my DMA program, it was like, okay, this is for the professor job. Like no one's really asking for a DMA if you're not looking for a professor job. If you're just wanting to play, you're not really looking for that. But when I was looking at professor jobs, it was really important to, like I had a class where they had us, look up, I'm going to say the names wrong, but those websites, Higher Ed Chronicles, something like that. Make sure you're registered for these email notifications and see like what's out there and practice. Like we had one class where it was like practice applying for this job. What are they asking for? Your resume or your CV and or recording clips and or, other valid experiences and or your degrees, So my experience really has just been looking at those, seeing what's available. The latest interview that I had, which I got, is an interesting story because I was actually reached out by the chair. Again, I lived in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois for the last couple of years. And I made a connection with the chair at Illinois State. Basically, when I was applying for this audition, I knew that at the time she was the principal of that orchestra. And so I wanted to play some excerpts for her. And so I went up, I played some excerpts for her. She gave me some great advice. And I found out she was the chair of the university. Oh, that's really interesting. So I got an email, I want to say in September, early on in the fall, and she was saying, hey, our current cello professor is going to be on leave for just 6 weeks. I think that you would be a good candidate to apply for this opportunity. And I remember turning to my wife, Teresa, and I was like, man, Illinois State's 4.5 hours away. Like, there is probably no shot like this is even worth it. No matter what money they're going to give, right? We're in Michigan. I want to stay in Michigan. And she turned to me. She was like, no, you have to do this. Like, this is an amazing opportunity. You're not always going to get temporary, you only have to do it for 6 weeks. You're not going to get those kind of opportunities. So I applied. Like I filled out, the resume, the CV. Those were, I think, the two biggest things. There wasn't any like essay or write up or anything like you'd have to do for like college things. And so I applied for that. And then a couple weeks later, she asked me for a Zoom interview. And I was in a Zoom interview with the chair and the current cello professor at Illinois State. And so they clearly got to see my resume and CVs and asked me questions kind of related to those. So I already put that I had a lot of Suzuki experience. I have taught in Suzuki schools and non-Suzuki places, non-Suzuki schools. I have a lot of experience teaching these pre-college kids and have the Suzuki pedagogy experience. And so they saw those things and asked me questions like, oh, how would you approach a college student now that you have all this experience? Or do you have undergraduate teaching experience? And as someone who does not have or has not had that label before, had to go deeper into those teachings of, oh, well, I have not, and not really saying in the interview, I have not taught college before, but I have taught Elgar Cello Concerto to my high school students currently and before. We're working on Saint-Saëns, we're working on these sonatas, and really make those, like answer those experiences not super directly, but give a context of, I'm interviewing for this because I want to have more professor teaching experience. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway I got from that interview. Again, I don't know if there were many others, even one other candidate that they were looking at just for the 6-week position. But I felt that it was really important to answer those questions with a lot of context and reciprocate those feelings of we want to make sure that we have, even though it's a temporary position, we want to make sure that we have the right person who is engaged, organized, willing to do this, those kind of things. So I'm very happy I'm actually starting that next week. So I'll be driving back and forth. Thankfully, I'm going to have a hotel and stay down there for a couple of nights, but I'm very excited for that opportunity towards being a professor. And hopefully that leads to other things down the road. I'm watching. Anyway.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And then one more part to that question, just how do you prepare for an interview like that for a professor position compared to like an audition? Because you can't really necessarily practice outright for an interview.
So, I've taken a few interviews. So I had the Illinois State interview. I've had a few other interviews in Grand Rapids now for music positions, for non-music positions. And I think it's really important we have a lot of resources. I mean, we have AI, we have Google in general, where there are a lot of these very general, how do you approach an interview questions? And I think that was the most helpful as far as like, what kind of questions could they be asking me? And yes, it's important to talk to your professors and like, what were they asked? That's a very good point. Like my professor at Illinois, Daniel McDonough, when I was talking to him, he was talking to me about, I was asked this and this and this. And I had other professors at Illinois and I'm thinking about this class I was referencing earlier, they were very open. I'm like, yep, here are the answers to my questions. I wrote them down when we were talking or how to Zoom in, and this is what I was asked. So it's important if you are looking at a professor interview, you want to talk to your professors and see what they were asked. And they may ask questions, them even knowing you, be like, you should be prepared for this question or you should write this down. I remember practicing that like a fake interview. And you can do these fake interviews with like your friend or your partner. But I remember practicing this by myself and writing out this question, having an outline of what I would say, and then practice saying it. I've also seen people where they'll write the question, they'll write out exactly, and they'll just say it out loud, practicing those things. How that's different from an audition, I think an audition is purely about your playing. It's purely about you want to sound the most, correct without your face or your visuals like affecting your interview. Whereas like an interview for a professor job, you want to be dressed up, you want to look your best, you want to feel your best, You want to make the professors feel like they are talking to a professional, to someone who is going to help mold their students or help mold the college's students to be best representations, best models for their university. So to summarize, I would say professor interviews are more about interviewing like your non-music friends who are going into a career field. And you want to talk about your musical experience. And of course, you want to have the rights. You want to have your best recordings sent first before. But it's more about your ability to communicate, your ability to engage, and your ability to be likable, honestly. Audition, I have friends who, I'm thinking of one specific friend, but I have friends who they take their auditions in their PJs because they are the most comfortable. They are the most comfortable. Now, you need to make sure that it says blind audition because, not all of them are blind. At the end, a lot of these auditions will say there may be a non-blind portion. We may remove the blind, remove the panel. So be prepared for that. And who can imagine if you're in your PJs, what that would be. But I have friends who that's what works for them, and they play beautifully. My goodness, they play so well. That's not me. I'm always showing up in my all black and my origami, shirt, really comfortable shirt, no plug.
No plug.
No plug, though I would, but
If you're offering a sponsorship.
But that is what I always go to the same audition and almost the same like performance pants with that origami shirt, and that's how I feel the most comfortable. I feel the most comfortable going to interviews in either a nice suit or, for those of us who go to church, honestly, your church best, that works too. Yeah. You want to go in feeling your best. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So along the lines of auditions, how do you balance audition prep with your teaching and your performing commitments?
It's important to be really structured and organized with your practice. The times in my life where I had the most success, first, it was I will say in undergrad especially, I had a 4-hour limit that I had to do, like a 4-hour max. That means I was practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, closer to 4. And in those 4 hours, we have the technique part, we have the solo part, etude part, concerto part, audition excerpt part, and every day can be a little bit different. But to balance audition prep, solo prep, those need to fit into those categories on a consistent basis in some way. And thinking about auditions, not every day should look the same. I have friends who talk about their cleaning day on audition prep. They'll talk about the cleaning day, their intonation day, their speed day, like with their tempo days. And that just keeps the variety going as we do in all our other practice times going. But you also want to feel really comfortable and really set in your practice. Thinking about auditions, you want to give yourself enough time to learn the music, learn the excerpts, but also time to refine them or feel like I'm not scrambling to learn this excerpt part. I am in the phase where I'm just trying to keep the technique in my fingers up for this audition. Now, I've auditioned for regional orchestras, and the ones I've found the most success are the ones where I could be like, I'm going to play my best, and if they don't like it, then that's fine. You don't want to go into an audition thinking, I'm not really sure I got this, and maybe like if I can't scratch, it's not worth it. But when that does happen, there is still a chance that you take the audition. So I'm segueing into, because I have a lot of colleagues who they'll prepare for this audition and then a week before they'll just pull out. And there are a multitude of reasons why people pull out, and that's fine. But I feel like there's so many colleagues who just aren't feeling, or they psych themselves out. They psych themselves out from taking the audition, and sure, maybe it's an hour or two away, and maybe you have to get a hotel. But you won't know until you try, because you may have a really good day, or you may have a bad day, but everyone else you has a bad day. And then the committee likes that version of you more than other people, which is how I had an audition where I felt like that was the case. Like I didn't feel like I had a great day, but in this particular audition, it's one of those, the weather was very humid and everyone, you go into the audition room and you could tell everyone was just, I mean, maybe this is a little too much, but everyone's like really sweaty. It's all really feeling really icky. And you go in and what you think was not your best was pretty high because you set that level for yourself. Yeah. So going back to, balancing that solo audition work, etude work, make a structure that works for you. For me, when I was practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, that was the first hour was etudes and scales. The second hour was concerti. The third hour was sonata practice. And the fourth hour could be audition. And then there was like a mix of all those things. I think you should have a warm-up time, but maybe you do your etude work and then you do your sonatas first and then your concerti. Or maybe you do your warm-up and then you do your auditions. It's however you feel works best for you.
What's something about audition prep that students often misunderstand or underestimate?
I think students prepare their audition excerpts like their solo work. And so we'll do what we need to do for our solo work. Like we'll take things slow. We will build up a tempo. And then we can play it well a few times. But the next step to that is now you need to put yourself into that uncomfortable situation. I've been going through college, summer festivals, all of that. You've heard so many different talks about, or I've heard so many different talks about, you need to place yourself in that uncomfortable scenario because for me, auditions are some of the most uncomfortable situations you can be in. Now, some people will do beta blockers and they've said that beta blockers, that fixes everything. I have not used beta blockers, a little bit more from a fear, but I have friends who have done it and to be like, that's the only way I'm going to get into DSO or Chicago Symphony or all of that. I say the beta blocker thing is more of kind of a side part. I'm a believer that that's not an essential part to like taking the audition, but what is essential is to put yourself into that uncomfortable situation. You can do those by put your alarm for 3 a.m., wake up, roll over to your cello, play the part, record yourself, and go back to bed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's I think is an extreme example, but that is, you want to do something like that. Or when you're practicing, put a timer off that's going to go off at a random time. You don't want to be like also watching for that time, but you put it off at a time, and then when that comes up, do your Don Juan. See how it sounds. Because that's going to tell you so much more than if you are practicing for Don Juan for 30 minutes, either ineffectively or effectively, because your Don Juan is going to sound good after 30 minutes, but not necessarily when you're on your audition, you just finished Midsummer or you just finished Brahms 2, and then they ask you for your Don Juan right on the spot, or they cut you off in the middle of an excerpt and say, now do Don Juan. So that's something I think students underestimate. And I think students also underestimate, to go back to what we were talking earlier, I think students underestimate the effectiveness and the confidence you gain from just taking these auditions. Just take all of them. Just say yes to all of them. Don't wait for that perfect opportunity. Just do them. Fail 100 times, and then you'll get one. I had a colleague who told me he was like, oh, I'll sell you my excerpts parts. Like, I've been working on these fingers. Like, great. Yeah, take 70 auditions. And sometimes they win one, or sometimes they win none. But that constant repetition of putting yourself into those situations is really important for auditions. I think those are my thoughts there. Yeah,
that's a good answer.
Yeah, I like the rolling out of bed at 3 a.m.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Have I tried it yet? No, I can't say I have the 3 a.m. one, but it has worked. I mean, again, you can think of other uncomfortable situations. Or I remember I had a teacher tell me, yeah, this was for a solo. Play your Elgar solo in the kitchen where your parents are working, where your parents are cooking. And it felt weird because like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's a different environment. You want to practice putting yourselves into different environments. And then when you're on stage or you're on the audition stage, it's going to feel that much more comfortable.
Yeah.
Have you heard the running around like the building or running around your house and then playing?
My good friend, did that not for an audition, but before like a studio recital. And yeah, he ran around the concert hall 3 times. And he did say the adrenaline that you usually get either from an audition or from a solo performance, that helped, level it out. So he felt like he played his best when he got back on stage.
Yeah.
That is not me. But that works for people too.
We've had a couple people do that for our violin studio recitals.
Yeah.
They just run around the music building and then they come and they play.
Shout out Avery.
You a real one.
The real one. Yeah, there's been so many times where I don't know. I just see him just run around in his concert black. And I'm like, okay, Avery. You get it.
Yeah. All right. So I want to turn to burnout now. How do you stay organized while going through burnout?
Like before, you want to organize your practice so you feel like you're hitting your goals. And that's why I think it's important that you have a limit. For me, 4 hours was my limit. And that was like a recommendation from a teacher. I've heard people be like, no, you need to practice 8. You can practice 8 hours a day as long as you're organized. I mean, and some of these Juilliard, solo, whatever people, like that's what they do or that's what they claim to do. Like when they're like 6, they'll talk. I think Pablo Ferrandez, don't quote me, but I think Pablo Ferrandez, the soloing cellist, talks about like in an early age, he's practicing 8 or 9 hours a day. For me, you need to know like what your limits are. And especially for me in my life right now, with a wife, with family close by, having a 5 p.m. shut off, or like when the school day's over and my wife comes home, having that shut off on even if it's not all of the days, but some of the days is super important. I grew up always resting on one day, as in like there was like a Saturday or a Sunday. You did that day, you either, you went to church or you played outside with friends or you went to a museum, but you just did not do the work that you do on the day. For me, taking one day off a week from practicing entirely, that means like not even opening your case is so nice, is so important. Now, the day after, you do feel like you need to like build things up a little bit. But for me, that is super important to have that day where I don't feel like I have to play cello. And now I should tie this back to like my experience as a graduate student, specifically even now as a doctorate student when I was taking lessons at the University of Illinois. I feel like I practiced the least amount during that time where I was doing my assistantship, doing teaching, playing with orchestras, going to classes. And at that point, as someone who was also in a long-term relationship and married at that time, I wasn't going to get 4 hours a day. And it was hard early on, but it was so worth it because maybe practicing 2-3 hours a day. And also I should thank my teacher, Daniel McDonough, who was more about musicality in my learning process, where I could take these segments, practice for 30 minutes at a time or practice for an hour at a time, work on those things. I feel like I made like some of the most growth I've ever made just because it was a more thoughtful approach to practicing. And it was a little bit more heady, I guess. And I still think you can do that with technique as well. I have a teacher, I remember Colin Carr in a summer festival. His big thing at that time was we just waste all the time in the practice room. Like we're practicing 6-7 hours a day and we are just playing for 5 or 6 of them. And that 1 hour, there's 1 hour in there where it's super helpful. Other than that, whatever. There is not a direct, so I think I'm going between all these different facets of practicing. There's not one way to do it, but the thoughtful practicing is in small bursts. And those are the ones that you want to really pay attention to and really admire. As far as burnout, give yourself space. Give yourself space to be a person. You have friends who are non-music people who don't practice 4 hours a day. Yes, they experience burnout in their different ways, but like a lot of my friends, they will go home after work and they're playing video games or they're socializing. They're going to the bar to get a beer with their friends. They're going to trivia nights. Man, that's the type of stuff that we forget as musicians that is so important to our lives. And you meet really happy musicians. You meet really bitter musicians. and you notice those different things that they are doing and that they're not doing. Make space for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So, what does it really take to run a private teaching studio?
Man, there's so much organization and, accounting and communication, developing a studio agreement, communicating, putting up posters. When all those posters don't work, you talk to a million different people. In my case, there were a few, like connecting with Kyle Pitcher, who connected me to Allie Holden and Jenny Allen. And then, like, my wife knew Dan Scott because she student taught at Jenison. So anyway, and then a bunch of students kind of roll in from there. It's important to put yourself out there. I'm playing Kyle Pitcher now because that clip keeps running in my head. Put yourself out there. Do all the things that you think are, oh, I don't need to do that. Just do it. To put yourself out there, to get your name known. The studio part, you want to have a studio agreement so everyone understands the cancellation policy, what your rate is, where you're doing your studio, how long you're having your studio for. And then you just want to practice with your students as you continue to build your studio, how to communicate, because we don't have it figured out right away. My teacher at the Hart School, Mihai Tettel, was telling me that we are, as a teacher, we are in an extremely slow field. My engineering friends, they go into school, they do their 4 years, they do their internship, they're highly qualified, they get their job, they're doing their job. Teachers, it's not like I want to have a 20-person studio today, so I'm going to call up 20 people in there, I'm just going to teach them. Because if you're just starting out, you're going to make tons of mistakes right away. The teachers that we want to go to have a lot of experience teaching. So you want to make your mistakes. You don't want to be afraid to make those mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes and say the wrong thing and then learn from that and then apologize to the student and things like that. It takes time to build up a studio of students, but also takes time to build up your own ability, your own passion, your own fostering encouragement, those kind of skills. And, there are going to be students that you're going to love. And there are going to be students that you struggle with so much, no matter what is going on. I had a teacher who told me that they say, if the student is not having a good time or the student's not progressing, it is my fault. Now, I have my struggles with that because that's a lot to put on yourself. But I think the weight of what she's saying is right, because the student is not reciprocating what you think that they are able to do, then that means that your job as a teacher is you need to try to be malleable and to change for them. We are going to have students that it's just not going to work, and it's best for them to go on, and that's okay. It's not our job to accept 30 students and keep all 30 students and do exactly that, but you need to be willing to adapt and try different things. I come from a Suzuki background as a student and as a teacher with training. And there are students and there are parents of students who see Suzuki and they flock to that. And I see families who see that and they're like, nope, heard bad things about that. Don't want to put up with the group lessons. Don't want to do recitals all the time. And both of those things are okay. And you may have studio recitals that you put on. You can't make anyone do. But you put those up and there are students who won't go to those things. And you know what? That's okay. You have students who will go to all of them, and that's okay too. So you need to be really flexible about your approach in the studio teaching space. At the same time, there are some values that you are going to say, this is what I'm going to do, and if you don't like it, that's how I'm going to do it, because that's what I'm comfortable doing. If you're not comfortable doing of teaching a certain way that another person is comfortable teaching, that's okay. They can go to that teacher. We're not in this space. You probably hear this a lot. If you're going to major in music, you're not doing it for the money. And that hurts because I like money. I like being able to say I'm not worrying about money.
Yeah.
And we're going to have times where we are worrying about money. But we do this as teachers because we are molding the next generation in whatever field you choose. We're talking about music. Someone comes to me for a cello lesson. You are helping them with music making on the cello, but you're also teaching them responsibility. You're teaching them discipline, and those things are going to carry on to their careers as doctors, as astronauts, as trashmen, as janitors, whatever it is. They're going to remember those things, and you are going to have that impact on their life. And honestly, I'm not at that place yet where I've had a bunch of students who are musicians and aren't, or who are musicians and who are non-musicians as like their career field. But I imagine in the future, when I see my students who are musicians or amateur musicians, like non-professional musicians, or who did not do music, who like stopped music for a long time, but they use those skills of discipline and responsibility and keeping track of things. You're going to look back on those. I imagine I'm going to look back on those students and be like, yep, we helped foster that. We helped them be that person today. And that's the most important part. And that's why I choose teaching music, playing music over any career. I mean, I still, like, there are moments where I come back and I think, wouldn't it have just been easier if I just stuck to engineering? Like, in a way, yeah. Like, in a way, like, I would have a salary at this point, probably. I would be able to pay for this or pay for that or go to this place or go to that place. And then you reflect back and you're like, well, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't be with my wife. I wouldn't be in Grand Rapids. I probably wouldn't have even left Washington or Seattle. And I'm in a place where I'm very grateful for all those little things that happened. And being a music teacher, I will say, every time, like, I have those moments of doubt, and then I'll teach at Rockford, I'll teach at Jenison for, maybe an hour and a half or 3 hours. And almost every time, even with the struggling kids, I'm like, yep, that was worth it. 100%, because you can see the little changes. You can see the relationships that are building, because you're not only teaching them cello, but they need you a lot of the times in other ways. And that's what makes it worth it. That's why teaching, that's why education, that's why it's all worth it. Yes, we should pay our educators more, but we're going to do what we know is going to help mold. And that's why I do what I do.
I like that. So with your studio, what is the hardest part about being a teacher and, I guess, a business owner? And not everyone does it this way, but yesterday I was spending an hour, 2 hours organizing my teaching schedule. I do them on a monthly basis, and paying, sending out invoices and making sure that they fit into this category, especially with my trips coming up for that Illinois position. And that can take a lot, and you need to be willing to do that. And that kind of stuff, at the same time, while it can be hard and grueling, gives me energy, because it's really fun to be able to set those different parameters and things in my schedule. All the administrative stuff is overlooked. It's not taught to you in schools. You have to go to you have to go to other resources to learn about it, or you just have to be thrown into the fire and, figure it out on your own. And you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to have students who leave either expectedly or not expectedly. And that can be hard, especially, you're building these relationships. And so that can be really hard, especially if it's a student that you didn't expect to leave. It takes a lot of organization to make it a stable income, because you need to set those parameters of, like, you're going to pay monthly, you're going to pay this tuition. And what does that mean for the summer? Does that mean that you're not going to make money this summer?
you're going to have to think about those things that your salaried friends are not necessarily thinking about. And that kind of stuff can bleed into your personal time, into your after hours time. And it's hard to separate those things. And you plan on, worrying about those things between your 9 to 5, or your 8 to 6 or whatever. It takes practice to organize your thoughts in that way.
I guess along those lines, what are some strategies you use to grow your studio?
Continuing to market myself as like keeping an active social media page for my so I'm a Facebook user, and I'm coming to the not coming to the realization, but there are a lot of problems with using social media and everything. I find that posting about what's going on in my life or any positions that I come up to, they connect with not just my family, but my other music friends. And then they know, and then those kind of things get, he said, she said, I saw this, you should look at those guys. Continuing to put yourself out there it's a part of this that I really enjoy, but it is necessary. If you hermit yourself into the practice room and get really good, you can be really good at violin, really good at cello, but who's going to know, right? Say yes to everything. Yeah. If you want to, the more times that you say yes to a parent who, that hour, oh man, do I really want to teach at that time? Okay, fine. When you say yes to those things, they will know more about you, and then they tell other people. Again, keeping yourself out there. I really do think just keeping yourself out there is the best thing that you can do when growing your studio. When I moved to Michigan, the first thing that I did was find out who are the other cello teachers here. And I emailed them and I messaged them and said, can we get coffee? I'd love to talk. I'm new to the area. I'm a cello teacher. I want to get acquainted. And I think I met at least 4 or 5 people. I'm thinking of Karen Kreml, Alicia Gregorian Sawyers, Jill Warren, these other cello teachers who we met, we had coffee, we talked, and they were like, now I can recommend you to a student I can recommend a student to you when I don't have time, or my student isn't working out. Now I know your name. Or what we found in Grand Rapids, there are people who live in Wyoming who want to stay in Wyoming. People who live in Allendale want to stay in Allendale. People who want to live in Forest Hills and don't want to travel even to East Grand Rapids for lessons. They'd rather stay in Forest Hills.
Sorry, I'm just...
But it was interesting, even talking to those people, those are the type of things I found out. And I will say, my wife grew up in Grand Rapids, so I had a little bit of help with Grand Rapids, knowing her experience, talking to her about her experience. But I didn't expect everything to be so segmented here. And it really is. I mean, in Seattle, I drove 30 minutes to a lesson. For my first cello teacher, she has students who will drive an hour, 2 hours. She has students who will drive when she has her summer home in Oregon. They will drive 3 hours and stay there for a few days just to have a few lessons. Whereas here, it's a little bit different than that. Continue to put yourself out there, connect with other teachers, connect with other professional musicians, put your name out there. And then when they are in your studio, you show them that you are communicative. You show them that you are a caring and kind person, that you're doing this for not just the money, but for the student. You're doing it for your passion, and they will continue to be there. That's something that's worked for me. And again, it's not 100% retention, but those families, when they notice that, then you have those relationships for life, no matter what. I still have students. When I went to this honestly, this was really cool. I have a few students when I was teaching them when I was living in Kalamazoo at Western Michigan, who would out of nowhere either email me or text me. They shouldn't have had my phone number, but they found it. And then it's just this is a video of what I was working on. And that means so much. You see the growth, and I always try to respond to them. Sometimes it takes a few weeks, but I will try to respond because that means so much to a teacher. Even a teacher, if I had a student who could barely, use their bow hand, and I 3 or 4 years later, I see a video either through them or through someone else of them playing. Now with that bow, like with that fixed bow hand, it's like you had an impact on them and they're continuing. And that's so cool. That's so cool. I have students who are improvising, who are like trying to arranging music. And that's not something I've done very much of, but that's their passion. And then I see that media to see how well they're doing, see that they're still even doing it is so cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said about outsourcing yourself to professional musicians in the area and stuff.
Yeah, we're all in this together, guys. We can fight with each other, sure. I mean, I'm sure musicians fight all the time. They like, oh, I want that. Oh, that student is with that teacher. Oh, they're no good. They should be with me. I mean, we could play that game all the time. I think we'll talk about comparing in a second, but we could play the game all the time, but it's not about us, right?
Speaking of comparing, that comes to our next question. Comparison is such a big part of music, right? Whether you're in the professional world or as a student, it's always there. What's your take on that, whether it comes to your students or even yourself as a professional musician?
Comparing is important, but it is dangerous. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend I don't compare myself to other people. I was lucky enough to be invited to play with Grand Rapids Symphony for their Lord of the Rings cycle. Super cool. Never saw Lord of the Rings. Saw it 5 times after that. Yeah.
What'd you think?
Oh, it's cool. It's good. Yeah. I mean, again, this was only the first movie. I know there's a lot more stuff that goes on. Haven't seen the other 2 yet, but really cool. Really cool. And anyway, it's hard enough, like, and then playing with that cello section, best cello section I played with before, right? And they're all they're all similar to my age, but you could tell they all get along, and they were good players. And it's hard for me as someone who just moved to the area to be like, I want to do that. Like, why isn't that me up there? Why can't I sound like him or her or whatever? It's that comparison that kind of drives you to be like, okay, I know where I'm at. I know where they're at, or my feeling of where they're at. I'm going to work my way to be there, right? I know who I am. I'm comfortable where myself as a player, I know I can get to that spot, or I know I can fit into this hole, in some way. It's important that we don't try to foster comparing, though. Comparing is just going to come up naturally. My first teacher would never, when she had a studio recital, she would never have the same 2 people, or she would at least try not to have the same people playing like Humoresque or playing Allegro Moderato. I'm thinking Suzuki Book 3. In the studio that I was in, yeah, I compared myself to other people when I was growing up as well, like in that Seattle studio. But it's important to take that comparing and look at how that can build you up, not how it can tear someone down. Because us tearing people down it just doesn't help. You can say, like, there are people that, to get to the top, you got to tear people down. We could think about, a lot of people in mainstream who that's probably how they did it. But at the same time, that's not the type of life that I want to, live. You always want to live a life of good character and, bring people together and everything. And it's hard to look at social media and see other musicians, our colleagues from summer festivals, from other schools who won this job, who got this, who's doing that. As in life, like when we're comparing everyone to Instagram, it's just a picture. We don't know like what's going on there. So take your comparing and use it for your betterment. And yeah, take what you take the mile of comparing and use that comparing to build yourself and connect with other people because musicians work best when we're all together.
Yeah, I like that. Because here at Grand Valley, I'm the only performance major for violin and the rest are music ed. Yeah. And so there's really only 1-2 people I can compare myself to here.
Sure.
I went to a music festival this summer, and I mean, it was like 13-year-olds were playing like crazy music, and it just makes me look like I'm just like this terrible player. And so the comparison was definitely there. But when I got back here, I just did a ton of work on myself. Like, I knew what I needed to work on after I saw what the standard is like everywhere else in the world. So yeah, I think comparison can sometimes be harmful, but at the same time, it has its perks sometimes. Sometimes it's a motivator, I feel like.
I think that's why it's really important to do music festivals, no matter what school you're at. You could be at Juilliard or NEC or, wherever. But going to music festival just means that you're putting yourself into a different environment, into a more challenging environment. You go to festivals for the teachers, right? But then you're seeing the students who are also going for those same teachers, and what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what does that mean? That reflects on, my own strengths or my own weaknesses. And at the same time, you're making connections, and the people are going to know your name forever. And especially with social media, they're never going to forget it. In comparison in that way, I think is a very healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to go to music festival, see the 13-year-old when you're 25 and be like, yo, that's nuts. That'll never be me.
Yeah.
I'm taking the orchestra hat right off. So comparison is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's just what you do with it. Don't let it bring you down, because we're all are different people. There's no one musician that's the same as the other musician. Sure, there are these people who got into Chicago Symphony, but they're not the same. They all have their different journeys. Be confident in your own journey, because your own journey is who makes you uniquely you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this quote recently from someone online. But it was talking about supporting your colleagues and your friends if they do the same profession as you, and she was saying, I used to be so just kind of innately competitive, like that was natural, and I had to rework it by thinking to myself, her success does not mean there will be less success for me.
Yeah.
And that was big to hear.
That's huge.
Just being like, honestly, the success of your friends helps you. It supports you. Both, I'm sure that'll get you more connections as well if you're close with these successful people, but also through encouragement and just, that I don't know. Yeah, I just like the idea of more success from someone else does not mean there's less success for you.
There's enough to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, their orchestra spots are, limited, and we're fighting for them, and they're non-tenured. And I'm actually even thinking about professorship jobs. They're non-tenured, whatever. But we all have a place in this world. I guess that comes back to a more philosophy thing. Like, there is a plan for all of us, and even if it's not your own plan, shoot, like, it's going to lead to something. I speak to my dad, who talks about, he went to Juilliard for piano. And then he talks about how he was like, that's not for me. I'm going to go into choral conducting. And then it was like, wait, Seattle has nothing, but my wife got a really good job there. I'm going to follow. And then making it work in Seattle. And again, you imagine your life down the road, and most of the time it's not exactly what it's going to be like. But I'm grateful he did that. I'm grateful I grew up in Seattle and wanted to come to Michigan, and I'm here where I'm, at. And, there were times in my life where I come back where I'm at. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, whoa. And then, 2 years down the road, it's like, oh, that's why I was here. So, yeah.
So you were talking earlier a little bit about being flexible with your teaching. How do you adapt and change your teaching style, like techniques and things like that, for the different students you have and their needs?
Yeah, that's a great question, because every student is different, and even within the Suzuki parameter, group lessons, weekly lessons, studio recitals, book recitals, they can all fit within that box. Every student has a different background and a family experience, and so you have students who will really pick things up really well, and they'll get their cello hand, and they'll get that actually on the first try, and their bow hold is, oh, I thought we're going to have to do 1,000 of these, but we're only have to do it 200. This is cool. It's really important to be supportive in any way you can. So students who are really picking it up fast, encourage them. Hey, this is really coming quickly. You're doing a great job. You're doing the different practice things that we talked about. let's continue to do further because you can. The students who are really struggling or taking it really slow, I can see progress and I can see that you want to do it every lesson. And we're just taking a little bit of a time, and we need to do other games. Games like, toolbox games. The spider crawl for like the bow, or, ski jumps for the left hand. And maybe they've hit all of those and it's still not working. Then you need to go and expand your toolbox. There are so many resources out there for different games from other Suzuki teachers, from non-Suzuki teachers. I mean, Alexander technique, that wasn't made for musicians. That was originally made for dancers, if I'm not mistaken. And then that clearly blended into musicians because there's a lot of similarities. You need to be open to say, this is not working, I need to change my approach, or this is not working, I need to stop and recenter myself. Or sometimes it's the student, hey, we're really struggling with this. The next couple lessons, I'm telling myself there's going to be a little bit more talking and understanding why a certain kid is acting a certain way or really struggling with a certain thing, and really trying to get more of a background and understanding of what. I actually have a student right now who's really struggling to hold their bow, and they're holding it like supinated the whole time. And I found out that that even in their school, they are having trouble holding pencils and everything. So now the language that I'm using, shake, 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 let dripping waterfall, put it up, and they hold it, and then they go, shh. Then it's like, okay, I was doing this lesson earlier today. What is collapsing? Okay, it's fingers 1 and 2. Are they collapsing? Nope, you're doing okay. They're not collapsing. What about the pinky? Okay, let's see. Let's call our pinky. Let's say that your pinky, this is level 1. And then maybe this is like a level 3. And then maybe like where it's tall is a level 5. So let's set up level 5. Oh, okay. You can play with level 5. Put it on the string. Oh, what level is that? What level is that? That's a level 1. Okay, interesting. Bring it back to level 5. Let's see if we can keep it to level 5 there. This is something I've not said with any student before, right? I'm doing this with a student now, but I've never used that for another student. So you need to be creative and find different ways to communicate these things with students. Language is so important. I think every student I have has a different language that I approach it with. There's always like a all-encompassing, this is kind of what I learned in training, so I'm just going to do it this way. But you need to be open. You need to be open to creativity. And when it doesn't work, always have a positive attitude and don't make the student feel like they're doing something wrong. As long as, they're trying, their best. If they're running around the room, then it's like, okay, why are we running around the room? Do you want a bat? Like, I don't know. Or like, do you want something? Yeah. Anyway, it's not necessarily like a checklist of things to go over. It is a willingness to be adaptable. Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest thing I've learned over the past year is just improvisation.
Yeah.
It's the biggest help that you can have as teacher, student, whatever. Just being able to, on the fly, if something goes horribly wrong or you didn't prepare, being able to just flip a switch.
Right.
So, yeah. And then coming off of that, do you strictly teach Suzuki necessarily, or do you have pieces outside of that you tend to go to for students?
A lot of in my experience right now, has a Suzuki core. I do a lot of Suzuki books. There are supplementary materials like by people like Rick Mooney, the person who published I Can Read Music. Those have a lot of Suzuki cores to them. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but even like my teacher, Mary Walters, she would say that she is a Suzuki teacher. She would use pieces that were outside the Suzuki method, but they would supplement on what we were working on. Mostly for the students I have now and for the students that I had previously, I go towards Suzuki material because I'm very familiar with it. But there are really cool resources that have come out before and are coming out now. I'm thinking specifically of Resonance is a cello method book that explores pieces from different backgrounds like Japan, Korea. I think there's some African pieces in there, and they do very similar things to what the Suzuki pieces do, but they just aren't as well known right now. And I think it's really cool that some of those pieces are brought up for like a younger generation. I'm actually working on a project right now where I'm taking Filipino folk songs and I'm adapting them for cello playing to help with certain techniques and positions, more of under the lens of it is important to have different options for students, and under the lens of it's important to represent music of different cultures that we don't experience on a daily basis or in mainstream. For Filipino, it's more personal because my mom is Filipino, and there's also a level of I'm exploring pieces that my mom grew up with, but she didn't necessarily share with me because when she came to the States, it was about being American, but it's so cool to see those roots from where I came. Anyway, so again, to go back to the Suzuki part, my experiences with Suzuki, but I've also taught out of Essential Elements, and I think that there are, like, what I like about the Essential Elements books, and I think Sound Innovations, is that they start the fourth finger right away.
Yeah.
Whereas Suzuki, if you just follow like the books, like the first finger you really put down is one, and there can be a lot of problems with that from a cello side. So I think getting aspects, like if I have a kid who's having like really weak fourth fingers, I will bring those Essential Elements, whatever the name is, but fourth finger set up to really strengthen those things. So I want to say, like, I am open to other literature as well. And I think that's important for other Suzuki teachers to be open to the holes that the Suzuki method has.
What does success look like to you now compared to when you were younger?
Success is I'm creating something. I'm doing something on my own. I'm doing something that not many people, they can say that they do. Again, here I am comparing. Success is I'm doing that thing and I'm supporting a family. Success is I'm having an impact on individuals, on students' individual lives that I did not think I would be doing 10 years ago. I think I remember telling my dad or my mom when they were asking, even before I looked at the music, would you do what your former teacher does? Would you have a cello studio? And I remember being like, no, I would not do that. Like, I'm a math guy. Like, I'm gonna do an engineering thing and it's gonna be fine. And do I want to build things with my hands? Not really. Do I want to design? Not really. But I love math and all of that stuff. And I guess, success also is being at peace with who you are as a person and still being willing to grow. Because, many people in my life will tell me I'm not a perfect person, and I know I'm not a perfect person, but I'm willing to grow and listen and be malleable and adapt. And I don't think I would have done that if I'd gone a different route either. Success is leaving my hometown for a state that I don't think any of my high school or middle school friends would even dream to go to. And not to call anyone out, but I'm sure that people in Seattle look in Michigan and be like, oh, Michigan, like what's up there? It's snow, right? And like, sure, the falls are pretty, but like, what do you guys really have, Seattle compared to Grand Rapids? Success is being willing to take that leap of, I don't know what's out there, but I'm willing to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So as we're wrapping up this episode, I have two final questions for you. The first one being, what's one piece of advice you want students to take away from this episode or in general? And the second is, are there any books or resources you would recommend to students?
As a Suzuki teacher, Nurtured by Love is a very interesting read. It's really interesting to see where Shinichi Suzuki came from and how we see Suzuki method now and the different perspectives people have on that now. It's a very interesting read. Be patient, be malleable, be kind, be adaptable. We're all in this together. We're competing against each other for our benefit. It does no good to bring anyone down. Every experience happens for a reason. If doing what you love isn't working out, look at it from a different lens. And maybe there's a path towards it, or a path that can parallel or be similar to what it's like. Be willing to look at things in a different lens.
I like that. Cool. And for anybody interested in learning more about you and staying updated on what you're doing, where can they go?
Yeah, my Instagram is AP Maestro. My website is andrewgagiumusic.com. I try to keep that as active as possible. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me from there, and love to hear from you.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our guest episode for today. I'd like to thank Braedyn and Bridget for being my co-hosts on this episode. And of course, thank you to Andrew for sharing your insights into the music world and for joining us on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. If you're someone you know would like to be featured on Tutti Talks, feel free to DM us on Instagram at Tutti Talks Podcast or email us at tuttitalkspodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on all our socials to stay up to date on all things music, from guest highlights and upcoming episodes to behind-the-scenes content and performance clips. We're passionate about reaching as many musicians as we can, and you can help us do that. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a fellow musician, colleague, or friend. Whether it's someone in your ensemble, your studio, or someone who would appreciate these conversations, every share helps grow our community. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tutti Talks. Keep the music playing, keep the conversation going, and we will see you in the next one.